All right.
Oh, you get one?
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, residents of Litchfield. As the chair of the Litchfield School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Google Meet for this electronic meeting. All members of the Litchfield School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following number: 1-877-568-4106. Access code is 544-679-229. Again, that phone number is 1-877-568-4106. Access code 544-679-229. Or you may, or by clicking the website and the following website address, Litchfield Community TV. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Litchfield School Board at School Board Agendas. If anyone has a problem, please email Christina Harrison at charrison@litchfieldsd.org or Michelle E. Flynn at meflynn@litchfieldsd.org. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes will be taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. I'd like to start the meeting by taking a roll call of attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the Right to Know Act. So I'll start. Brian Burke, and I'm here with Dr. Jetty, and I am also here with Litchfield TV and also our IT director. Anyone else on? Tina?
Yep, I'm here. I am alone in my office at home.
Very good. Liz?
Elizabeth McDonald, I'm here by myself.
Tara?
Laura Hirschberger by myself.
And Rob?
Here by myself.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That means we can get going. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any revisions to the agenda?
There are no revisions.
Summary of non-public actions from May 20th, 2020. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of May 6th, 2020. Mrs. McDonald second. The motion carried by roll call vote. Mr. Burke, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mr. Myers, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. Mr. Burke made a motion to accept the resignation of Sean Hogan, CHS physical education teacher. Mrs. Harrison second. Motion carried by roll call vote. Mr. Burke, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mr. Myers, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. I think we have no presentations this evening.
We do not.
No more commissions. So that'll bring us right to correspondence. Tina?
You're muted. Sorry. I have one emailed question from Jacqueline Boyson. She said she's wondering whether any of the parking fees for this year will be refunded for the underclassmen credited to next year. She said, for instance, we paid $75 for about 3.5 months for our sophomore spot.
I paid $50 for 3 weeks.
Yeah. So that was a question that I think it stemmed from the discussion of the capital planning committee about the repaving of CHS parking lot.
And that was on my school board comments, but so
okay.
we want to just wait till then, and hopefully we can have an answer for her.
Okay. I
Excellent.
think that's it for correspondence.
All right. That'll bring us to superintendent I'm sorry. Yeah, that is. That'll bring us to superintendent comments.
Okay, so a couple of updates for the board. So first of all, the authority to sign. There's a motion that's linked to the agenda, which will authorize me and Corey as the BA to sign all office of business management forms, all contracts, and all grants on behalf of the school board. And this is an annual motion that we make. And so we just wanted to open that up to discussion, see if the board had questions for us or if we're good to go on it.
Need a motion for approval?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the authority to sign to the superintendent and the business administrator for the summer months. Where to go?
It's not that one. It's the authority to sign contracts.
Okay, here it is. I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent and business administrator to sign all Office of Business Management forms, all contracts, and all grants on behalf of the Litchfield School Board.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Tina,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and Brian's an aye. 5-0-0.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We're going to talk about
Now we have the other one.
manifest when we get to that, because that's under Corey's report. So we want to talk about possibly streamlining the manifest process for the
No, I'm
board.
sorry. We have the from the contracts.
Yep.
So you want to wait on that one?
Nope. I just,
Because Tina started doing one, not the other.
okay. So let's do, the other is the hiring one.
Correct.
And so traditionally over the summer, the board allows the superintendent to have the authority to offer contracts to new hires. We're looking for that to be from the day after our next meeting, which is June 18th, going until August 31st, so that we can bring anybody forward to the board starting with the September meeting.
Okay. I'll make a motion to grant authority to the superintendent to offer contracts to new hires from June 18th to August 31st, 2020.
I'll second.
Tina made the motion, and was that Tara that second?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Tina,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and Brian's an aye. 5-0-0.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We'll continue to, when positions open up, get good people in place and on board with us. So thank you. So that brings me to the enrollment update. And so there are two enrollment reports linked for you. The first is the GMS numbers. And so I will tell you that we did gain a student this month, but it was in kindergarten. So our June 3rd number has the kindergarten number going up to 66. The grade 1 number that we're all watching very closely remains at 80, and all the other numbers stayed the same. So Joyce has been providing us with those updates, and we'll keep them coming for the board. And in terms of overall enrollment numbers, you can see that we've gained 2 students this month, and let's see where they are. Actually, we were up 4 at May minus September. Yeah, so we're up 4 at Griffin and up 1 at the middle school, and even, it doesn't make sense that that adds up to 2. Up 4, up 1, and overall, oh, because I'm sorry, we lost 3 at the high school. So we are down 3 at CHS.
Can I comment or do I have to wait?
No, it's,
I don't know how we can use these enrollment numbers today when we don't know what's happening in the fall. Like, we're going to have kids withdrawn for homeschooling. We might have remote classrooms. We might, I just, these numbers, I don't trust the numbers because we don't know what's happening. If I had a kindergartner, I might choose to keep him or her home for the year and not do any remote learning, just spend another, I don't know. It's crazy.
And I'm sure it's going to be a topic during the task force as far as reentry that will be discussed. I mean, these right now are just reported numbers of who's in those classes. This is not numbers that are utilized as far as a projection for next year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think the point you're making is really solid. There are so many uncertainties about what the fall is going to look like. These are just who's on our books right now. Depending on what we end up doing, I think I've explained to our team that we need to be nimble enough to offer a really personalized experience depending on where families are. Some are going to want their kiddo in school because they need the child to be somewhere during the day. And if we don't provide that option, they'll find it somewhere else. And others are going to say, I don't want to send my kid. I want him home and I need support from the school on how to educate him. And we need to be ready to do it all. So it's going to be a real challenge. But remember, we've issued contracts based on these numbers. So now it's how do we deploy our staff in order to meet the needs and be flexible. It's a dilemma for us, but we're not the only district in the middle of it. So,
yeah, Mike, I really believe the state is going to come down with allowing us a lot of flexibility in terms of customizing that education. So I think you're spot on. We need to be nimble. We need to have alternative plans, not everybody's coming back. That's for sure. At least right away.
I was going to bring this up later, but I'm going to hit it now because positioning us, I guess, to be flexible and ready. We had a conversation today, or I had a conversation yesterday. Michelle was in a conversation with Mary and a consultant today that we're going to contract with to do a policy overview. And the look is relative to, honestly, it's a googly eye series of policies that were developed over time as the ed rules loosened. So we've got a policy on distance learning, extended learning opportunities, independent studies, alternative credits, and now we're talking about remote learning. And you have all these policies that aren't directly aligned. They were sort of written over a period of time. So it's nobody's fault by any stretch. It's just that as the ed rules loosened, a new policy got written. As the ed rules loosened, another policy got written. And now they're looking to rewrite the ed rule to allow us to do remote learning in a kind of hybrid model. And our policies aren't caught up with what's happening. So we had a conversation with Heather Murray, who used to be at the Department of Ed. Heather Gage was her name when she was there. You may have heard of Heather. She was, among the top 4 people at the DOE. She gets it. And she's now consulting. And I think it's a wise thing to have her come in and clean all this up. And I said to her, I want something simple that we can hand to families that says, here's how you can earn a credit through the Litchfield School District. And it's not a series of policies that you have to sort through. There's really one-stop shopping. This is the way it can be done. And it'll settle the CTE question, the VLAX question, just all of those questions that we have. And I said, and by the way, we want it by the end of the month because we want to get it approved by the board and be positioned going forward. So, Michelle, do you want to just comment a little bit? Because you had the conversation with Heather today. I think it's the right way for us to head in to be ready for Tara. I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what we have to be ready to do going forward. So.
Absolutely. Heather was very accommodating, and she understood exactly where we were coming from. And when I started looking at the policy to apply wording for GPA credits, it started overflowing to other policies, and I said, well, this is going to affect 4 or 5 other policies. And it was really, it was becoming a domino effect. So I consulted with Mary and Mike, and Mike mentioned to me about Heather Murray, and I'm going to send her everything we have, the current policies as they are now, and the rewrites, so the revisions that I've made and the notes I've made on the policies to try to get them all in line. And I did explain to her we need one policy to tie them all together and then refer to the other policies as procedures. That's the best way to do it. And Mary also is going to forward her notes. So I think that we will have something no other district really has when we get done with this, which is going to be really good. And I'm hoping we have the remote learning, or maybe we can put some remote learning wording in there, which would be really helpful. We won't have to rewrite again come September.
The other time crunch with it is the handbooks. So we don't want to rewrite the policy and then have it conflicting with handbook language. So that's why we're on a tight timeline to get this plugging ahead. And I just thought contracting with somebody made sense. Michelle's definitely our historian on it. She knows how to get at the pieces of it. Mary and I are just so many moving parts right now that it wouldn't be something that we could oversee. And then you have to do the double checks. So if the ed rule says you must have a policy on this, there's a whole lot of cross-checking that bringing somebody with DOE expertise in makes sense. So we're excited, but I want the board to know and the public to know that we have our eye on this and positioning ourselves for definitely a hybrid year next year. So.
Absolutely. And just for an FYI, I'm also going to send her the middle school and high school handbook so she can see how I've tried to keep everything consistent across the district. And she's going to check that over and give me some tips on how we can condense some of it, but still keep it very consistent across the district.
Good. Thank you.
All right. The next update I have is on coaches certifications. So basically the question was raised back in the fall about how are we tracking and staying on top of the coursework that the coaches need to do, CPR training, concussion protocols, and so forth. So I've had a conversation with Josh and Jen Matthews about Josh Knight, the AD at the high school, sort of being the clearinghouse for all of that, including the middle school coaches, because as you know, the ADs at the middle school are full-time teachers who do this as a stipend, versus Josh has full administrative support to be able to be on top of it. So they're devising a process for coaches at both schools to meet those. And Josh is also recommending that there be required training on, he had it on, I think he called it heat index, but basically, if you're practicing in the hot sun, what are the symbols and hydration requirements and so forth. So I feel very confident going forward that we'll have a process. To that end, that's what led to our joking around about what athletics looks like next year, because, with the predictions that we're seeing, we just don't see many sports being able to even be played next year. The NHIAA and the Athletic Directors Association are having a lot of conversations about maybe switching some seasons around. So we don't know what's going to come of it all. But I want you to know that Josh is on the Athletic Directors Association committee that's coming up with recommendations. He's representing our division with one other AD from our division. So he's intimately involved in trying to figure out what that looks like. That's when we were joking about, maybe the soccer season is a penalty kick season and whoever scores the most penalty kicks wins, because I just don't know how you play soccer with a 6-foot radius. And that's where the basketball being a horse tournament, because again, we don't know how you play basketball with a 6-foot radius. So it's really a challenge that we have on our hands. But from the coaches certification angle, I just want the board to know that we will be tracking all that through the AD's office at the high school going forward.
And just to stay on that point, Mike, so Josh is part of because I'm noticing like softball is practicing, and I know it's the blast softball. I don't understand how they can practice with the softball and we can't practice with the football with 10 kids. Like, do they wipe the softball down in between each kid?
Our AD is on it also, Liz. and he's not committing to anything, but he said he thinks whatever they decide, his assumption was whatever they decide for summer school will be how they'll handle summer sports. And I heard today that my school is going to have in-person summer school. So if that's the case, my initial unofficial thing is I might be able to have summer soccer then.
I'm getting
if everything stays the way it is.
I'm getting emotional because I have a 2 or 3 sport senior, and he's done his time as a freshman and a sophomore, and this is his year to shine. He's never going to play football again. He's never going to wrestle again. It's just very emotional.
Yeah. And it is for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. Yep, I got it. So hopefully as we get a little closer to it, we'll have a better idea of what's going on. The governor will speak again.
I don't think we're going to hear anything, Liz, till mid-July at the earliest.
No, which is fine. And the same thing with who's going to commit to send their kids back to school.
Yeah.
I think it's great. We could start a plan right now, and it's going to change in 2 weeks, and then it's going to change in 2 more weeks. I think we're doing everything the correct way. That's my personal take from Liz McDonald.
Anything else on Coach clarification?
No, that's it on Coach's search. The next thing is there is a request for a fundraiser for the high school athletics. It's a golf fundraiser. And that's in your packet. Josh has put this in. There are comments in red that were sort of just points that we wanted to make relative to, obviously the golf course, Passaconaway would be in charge of what the rules are to play golf at their course, right? So we would follow along with any requirements that they had. But this is the request from the high school, and once approved, we don't envision being in the pandemic rules forever. So eventually it would be an approved activity. It would go back to more of a normal golf tournament. But if we can pull this off using the restrictions, that's something that Josh would like to do.
I propose that we approve the CHS Athletic Golf Fundraiser proposal, date to be determined this summer.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. I'm sorry, was there someone who opposed? All right, Tina?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And Brian's an aye. 5-0-0.
We're classic. Woohoo!
Yeah. So next up, retirement acknowledgement. So obviously the retirement tea, which was a great idea, we weren't able to pull off this year. So we can't be eating tea and crumpets and recognizing our retirees. So what I'd like to do, Brian has just signed on behalf of the board. So Brian and I signed retirement cards going to all of our folks. We'd like to get those in the mail. And then I'd like to invite them to our next meeting. And we haven't had the presentation and recognition. I think spending a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting with the retirees in the room so that the public can kind of see who they are and acknowledge them. And it gives the board a chance to publicly thank them. So we'll set that up for next meeting as long as the board is comfortable that that's what you would like to do.
I think it'd be nice too if we could invite them back next year when we do the other retirees, so at least we can do it in person.
Oh, that would be nice.
So the concept with the retiree tea is that you invite back past retirees. If you remember last year, we had several past retirees who came, and it ends up being a real opportunity for people to get together and see each other once a year. So we definitely will do that. But unfortunately, it's not a tradition yet because we only did it once. But we'll get back to it. We'll keep it on the radar. All right, so we'll get those invites out. So just a quick update for the board on graduation. This is a couple of things that you should know. The goal is to have the speeches for graduation recorded, I believe, next Tuesday, and to get them stitched together into kind of a presentation of the speeches. And I believe we're going to try to broadcast those on Thursday night. So Thursday, June 11th, that we will have a family watch party with maybe a Facebook Live or some kind of feed where the speeches will be released in advance of the graduation to sort of get everybody excited and hyped up for the graduation itself. On June 12th, we are set to have the graduation on the field. I will tell you that the feedback we got from the state was that our event was the largest one they had seen. That worries me a little bit when we're one of the smaller high schools, but we're planning one of the bigger events, right? So it's really going to require the complete cooperation of our graduates and our families. And so I'm going to be sending, I chose not to send a communication this week because there's so many end of the school moving parts. I didn't need to add to that. But I'm going to frame a message around, the courage, character, responsibility, respect notion that the high school is framed around, to tell them that, look, we're having the courage to organize an event in the middle of a pandemic. And now we need them to be respectful, to be responsible, and to demonstrate good character when they come and follow the rules that go with it. Because we are putting a lot of people into the space, but that is requiring trust. And, I'm every night, like I'm sure like everybody else, I'm watching the news and all these demonstrations, and it's a little bit scary what's going on out there. But we're a great little town, and we have to trust and believe in our graduates and our families to come together and to celebrate the seniors and to have the ceremony to mark the occasion. The high school chose to put most of the time into the graduates walking across the field, getting their diploma, going across the stage. That's what the time will be spent doing at the actual ceremony. And then it will follow with the parade through town afterwards. So families will be able to, we'll announce the parade pathway so people can come out and honk their horns and celebrate the students as they drive through LMS and GMS, and then circle their way back up here to the town hall. So, so I feel good about where we are, but I just want us to all acknowledge that we're taking a step out there. When I sit there at 4 a.m. trying to decide what the right thing to do is relative to snow days, it's hard. I know that I'm gonna offend somebody. I can't make the right answer, the right decision for everybody. And that's sort of what the graduation committee has found themselves doing. So, but
I appreciate their hard work. And I know there's no plan that's going to please everybody. I know I was under the impression for some reason that we had a Jumbotron and we're going to broadcast the speeches at graduation. So it would be part of the ceremony. So it is just, I understand the disappointment that they won't be given during the ceremony, but it was clearly a choice of either the kids walk across the stage or we have lots of speeches. So I appreciate the hard work that everybody's done putting it together, and I think we have a great plan. I feel very comfortable with it.
Will the speeches be on Litchfield TV?
So I'm not exactly sure how they'll be broadcast, but we'll get word out about where to go to watch them. So yes, and I'm sure that they can play again Friday. I mean, it's not like once it's captured and put together, we can always rebroadcast it. So
it'd be great if they could fit them into the graduation video. If we're recording,
wouldn't they do that for
graduation, insert those clips from those speeches so that it's one package. Rob's like, stop talking to me, stop talking.
No, so Rob said it can't be done live, but it can be done. So after the fact, there can be sort of this one video that is stitched together, right? So yes, that is a possibility. But the idea is to roll out the speeches in advance so people can hear that, spend the time. Because if you do it, even if you do it that night, there's like 8 speakers. If you say you're limited to 3 minutes, you're adding easily another half hour on, and nobody's going to limit to 3. So it just dominoes. It just dominoes. So they're going to spend the time recognizing, having each student walk across the stage and honoring that occasion, that rite of passage. So keep your eyes peeled. There'll be more info on it. But again, for anybody in the community watching tonight, we really are depending on everybody following the rules and doing the right thing on this, because we've gone out on a limb to organize what we've done. They've done a great job, by the way. The posters that popped up around town, the individual signs. I mean, they're really are honoring our students. And so we just need everybody to cooperate all the way through it all, and I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Any other questions or comments on graduation? One last thing then is, I think 2 meetings ago, we brought forward the general assurances that Brian and I have to sign for all the federal grants. I've read them and signed them all. Brian has signed them all, read them and signed them all. So I'm trusting there weren't any other questions from the board, but I just wanted to pause and make sure that you were all comfortable on it, because they are signed and ready to go for our grant money for next year. All right, that's the end of my piece.
Thank you. That'll bring us to school board comments. And I'd like to start because I had this on my notes before Mrs. Boyson brought it forward. If you recall, when we first stepped out into remote learning, and one of the things I brought up was reimbursement of parking permits. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to make a motion to reimburse the seniors and to credit all the underclassmen for next year of the portion of the days that they did not park there. I think it's only right to give them back what was unused.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, was that Tara?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion?
How do they pay? They pay by semester?
No, they paid for the year. And then any juniors or sophomores that just get their license, they can pay for part of a year.
Would it be easier just to give them half credit then, instead of trying to figure out days?
No, I think it's simple enough, Rob. If they pay $100 and they only use 73%, you just reimburse them 27%. I mean, it's pretty simple.
I just didn't know if it'd be easier to just say reimburse them $50.
No,
If it's the year.
no,
But
because
how do you
I
reimburse
think
me? Only pay for 3 weeks.
right. So
Did you pay
I
100 or 50?
I paid
though?
50.
See, I would just say reimburse $50, whichever. But I just think it'd be easier just reimburse them the $50.
well, the thing is, we're not doing it. So, and again, I think it's pretty simple because it's $100 and just whatever portion. Unless someone else feels that's what we got to do is give them $50. My motion is just to give them back the portion that they didn't use.
It'll be roughly, I think I calculated 66 days of remote. So it's roughly a third. So it's going to be about $33, but
Right.
I'll do whatever. As long as you have kids, I'll let you decide.
I'll do whatever they decide at the high school. I don't know. I wouldn't have, what did you say, 33% of the year? I paid $50 in March. How ironic is that? I wouldn't even care if they rolled it over to next year as a credit.
That's what I'm saying. All the underclassmen, whatever portion will be rolled into next year.
Yeah, $33 towards next year is fine. Then I'll just pay 60, or he'll pay 66.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Yes. I do it.
But we're in discussion right now. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to add to it. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I
Opposed? Abstained. Tina?
Aye.
Liz?
I
Tara?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And Brian's an aye. So we'll pass that information on to the high school, and I'm sure the secretaries can help out and take care of it. Any other school board comments?
I just wanted to say thank you to the support staff for sending postcards to, I'm guessing, LMS students. I don't know if it was done district-wide, but we got to post, just kind of about kindness and just positive messages. And I just thought that was a really meaningful thing to do. And I thank them for doing that.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move on. We don't have school board rep.
So actually, Trevor had emailed us that
I knew
he
he
was
couldn't.
not available, but Chloe is with us tonight.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
Chloe, I don't know
See
if
you
you
down
have
in the
a
corner.
report for us.
No, nothing tonight.
Thank you.
That'll bring us then to community forum. Tina?
I don't have any other emails other than Mrs. Boyson's.
That will then bring us to public minutes from May 20th, 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the public minutes from 5/20/2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tina made the motion, Rob second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Tina,
Aye.
Liz,
Aye.
Tara,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and Brian's an aye. Thank you. The principal reports are all linked, so anyone out there in the public that would like to view them, you're more than welcome to. They are all in the agenda. So the next is business admin report. I personally feel that I'd like to just hold off on any discussion on any of these because they came across late this afternoon. I didn't have a chance to take a look at them. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, I haven't.
Not either.
I was working today.
So what I'd like to do is you have the information now that it'll give you an opportunity between now and the next meeting. And that if you have any questions, you can formulate them and then we can discuss it at our next meeting. If that's okay with everyone?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I could just note a couple things on it, because you'll see some adjustments for the initial list that I made. I did put the canopy project in terms of year-end funding, but we need to discuss how we want to look to fund that as I get the RFP out. There's a couple different options. You could use some year-end fund balance. There's money we're saving on projects that we're not going to do next year in the budget. And we have $287,000 in the capital reserve fund for facility improvements. So there's some funding considerations there. We also put in Scott asked me to include the potential of the 5th, 3rd grade classroom, not knowing what's going to happen with 1st grade, but we might want to pull some money ahead to furnish a classroom just in case the enrollment hits the point where we're going to add the 5th, 1st grade back in. Also, we have a proposal in there that's noted from Jason in terms of going to a 2-to-1 model Chromebook wise in the 3rd grade, just as a response to the remote learning. There's some other minor changes throughout the listing, but I'm more than happy to speak to those. I do apologize for the lateness of it. At this late in the year, I do like to have things in terms of the financials as up to date as possible. So the financials that were provided with this report are as of today, including today's manifest. So we have a pretty good idea of where that fund balance stands as of today. So other than that, I can move forward with the report and give you time to review that listing. I wanted to speak a little bit to some things in terms of capital planning when it comes to canopy. David Ely reached back out. He's the one that did the initial design on the LMS canopy and the work that we're going to be doing. He provided a proposal that's included in there as well to finish up the design work and help us through that project, which I think is a very beneficial thing to take advantage of. He's a very good architect, and it would be a good working relationship with us. Also, as we spoke to, and we'll speak to the capital plan a little bit later For next year, we're looking at the energy efficiency project kicking off in FY21. There's the proposals from Dick Henry and David E. Lee as in regarding that project as well for consideration of the school board. As Mike noted before, we have discussed the procedure for manifests where we have been leaving them in the main office of the high school. We are now considering, in order to reduce the need to come into the buildings, we could provide remote copies of the manifests to the board, and the authorization to sign on behalf of the board could be delegated to the superintendent. It would open up the opportunity for you to take more time on it. If you're provided with it online, you can provide the questions back to us, and when you're comfortable with it, the superintendent could sign off for you, and you don't have to come into the building. Other than that, I had mentioned the financials. As you look at the financials, the whole purchase order management and outstanding employee contracts related to payroll, that process will be taking place over the next couple of weeks as we close out the year. So we'll have a real clear picture as of next meeting of what things are going to look like for year end.
Corey, the manifest process,
Yes.
if that was online, would we see the backup in addition to the actual spreadsheet, or just the kind of what would that look like?
We could. I mean, we could scan the full manifests in.
Seems like a lot of
Be a
work.
matter of and not stapling it all together before we scan it, but I think it's
What would we end up seeing? We would see the cover sheet.
you see the cover sheet and all the backup behind it.
So does anyone want to just continue it the same way it's been right now?
And
Does
it's
anyone have a problem going to the school to do it?
No,
I
No.
don't. Anyone?
no.
And this way we can take the time there and just spend a few moments and going through the process. I think
Yeah.
maybe so if everyone's in agreement, we'll just keep it the same way unless someone feels differently.
Wanted to put the option out there in case anybody,
No,
options available.
I could go either way. I actually do like having the time to do it rather than come to the meeting, sign it, and, not have a chance to really sit with it before the meeting starts or after it ends. I think that has been kind of rushed in the past. So either option. I don't have a hard time getting to the high school. I'll ride my bike.
Rob's closer.
Yeah.
I have a question, Corey, and I know you might not. For an additional third grade classroom, where is all the furniture from the other classrooms that we used to have? Where did all of that go? Why are we've been up and down. Why do we need more stuff for additional furniture and things? I saw it on one of the spreadsheets for a second.
To outfit another grade, the first grade.
Yeah, where is our furniture from all the other times?
I think some. Well,
It's more the textbooks and supplies, I would assume.
Corey can speak of it. I think some of the stuff is just thrown away. It was just whatever was the worst of it. They just,
Old. I mean, do you really want to dig things out of the 30s building to be reused at this point for a new classroom? I think the concern is that if we do hit that point where the first grade is needed, we would have moved that. If we don't need the fifth first grade class, we move that furniture into the third grade classroom, we're fine. But then we're short if we don't. I think this is just to hold the funds aside just in case we hit that mark so that we can go back and make sure that we have what we need for that class.
So every year we add a new classroom, we're going to have to keep buying new furniture, and we don't save furniture every year?
Liz, I think what it is that if you have 5 classrooms, let's say you have 5 first grade classrooms, and let's say we go down to 4, which would looks like that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Then what they're going to do is they're going to go through all 5 classrooms and remove desks that are like in poor shape, chairs that are in poor shape, and
All right,
consolidate.
that makes sense.
And-
I know we're all moving to tables, but I don't see that in first grade.
I mean,
I also think, quite honestly, we need to find a place for teachers to teach remotely, an empty classroom that if a teacher wants to come in and use a whiteboard to teach without any students, there are lots of things we need to worry about too.
Liz, you just keep talking about the whole task force thing. I think we might.
All right,
I think we may be
sorry.
resolving re-entry tonight with you.
No, Grumpy.
If I can speak to Brian's motion for a second, within that parking fees account, there's currently $36,000.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the number. I think the number of parking spaces is somewhere around 150.
It's a little
We
more
do
than
refund it. If we refund a third of the year, we're refunding about 5,000, which still leaves money in that account, which we do have. Dave has gotten quotes for doing some reclamation work and some walkway work, including an ADA compliant walkway down to the stadium field, and restriping the entire parking lot. We're looking at about $16,000 between the two vendors to do that work. And I think that would, as we've talked about before, what are we using the parking fees for? And I think this would be a appropriate use of those funds and get that work done over the summer.
Would they also add a sidewalk to the SAU?
Yes.
Oh, good.
To the egress for the SAU and also egress to the tech wing exit.
Corey, does that fund get depleted every year?
No.
Okay.
What used to happen with the parking fees is that we would receive it at the end of the year, not used. It would be dumped back into the general fund and dispersed across the taxpayers. And to me, that's not a fair allocation to take money from students and then offset the tax rate for that.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, we've always said that those funds should be kept aside for the maintenance and
Yep.
repair of the parking lot. So I just want to make sure that that is still what we're doing. So,
And maybe we could use some of the money for a little bit of beautification along the edges of the parking lot.
so do we?
We could.
No, I
I will make those plants in front of
Shrubs,
CH.
flowers.
I do that.
No, I think that's good. If those repairs can be covered by those fees, it's a win-win.
All right. Anything else for Corey?
If I could just remind the board, so if we continue with the manifest coming in to sign those, remember we have a new protocol in place. So board members do need to check in, do the health survey, take your temperature when you come into the buildings. This is required of anybody coming in the buildings going forward. So just be ready when you come in that protocol is in place, and the front office staff will ask you to do that.
Requiring them to wear a
Forget
mask.
it then. Let's go online.
Well, and you don't have to wear a mask at this point, but that's probably coming next. Again, as we get into the reopening task force, we have to make a decision about those things. But for right now, you're at least doing the health screener. I'd encourage you to check your temperature at home before you come, and if you don't feel well, don't do it. Wait.
It only takes a couple seconds.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So next we have a meeting schedule draft for the budget committee.
Yeah. So Tina, do you want to lead us through that?
I have a couple of questions.
The draft schedule. This is Tina, Brian, Corey, and I met with Andrew Cutter, and this was the draft meeting schedule that he put forward. And at the last meeting,
Yeah.
Tina, do you want to just comment on?
Yeah, so basically, the nights for the town, that we have the town presentations and the school presentations, in the interest of keeping to a 9:30 hard stop, we have decided it hasn't been voted upon yet, so this is still a draft, but the intent was to start those meetings at 6:30 instead of 7, just to give us a little bit of wiggle room so we can get more accomplished at those meetings. So the big difference for the school district is that this proposed schedule eliminates the 6-hour workday, the budget workday that we usually do, and instead of that, it would be held at a joint meeting with the budget committee. So it would be the school board going through, as we usually do during that work session, commenting and asking questions with the admin team there. And the budget committee would be observing that meeting, so that when the budget committee does their review, they're not asking the same questions that we've already had answered on Saturday. The admins, won't have to be in attendance because the budget committee will have already heard the rationale for any cuts or decreases.
Are they going to be able to talk during that time and ask their questions?
Well, we usually have, in the past when we've done the work session, we do after each section, we stop, and kind of ask if there's never any public to provide any input. But I think that would be a good time to answer any questions that they may have. It just helps them, it eliminates the redundancies that we have right now with our admin team is there for our 6-hour day, and then they present to the budget committee at 1, 2, or 3 meetings.
Can we cap it at 3 meetings? Because I can't be.
Well, that is 2 meetings right now. So us going through the budget with the budget committee there is 2 meetings.
You promise?
Yep.
For God.
So
Well, I have to be there anyway.
So, Tina-
but
Tina-
yeah, that's the intent. So
what am I,
that's slated for the 5th and 10th of November, which happens to be my birthday. So if I can do it, you can do it, Liz.
so what?
I don't see it ending at 9:30 at all.
Well, that's up to them. It's their meeting. They said it's going to end at 9:30. We'll
Right.
find out what they do. So my thing on the questions, though, I'm thinking about this, is I think it's going to be just like public input.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't necessarily
Okay.
need to get an answer. They're not going to get an answer because if they ask like 10,000 questions, we'll take them under advisement and we'll go from there. Because
Right.
there's no way you're going to do 2-3 hour presentations of our entire budget and have them
Yeah.
asking questions and want to have conversation. So if
Right.
they have
I
questions,
thought, okay.
But then the next 2 meetings will be the budget committee's review. And between those meetings, they can email their questions and have them answered, so I can take them down or they can email them to Dr. Jetty and Corey and have those responses
yeah.
to
So
them.
I think just getting closer to the meetings, we'll just have guidelines of like how we'll let them.
How it's gonna work.
Yep.
Right. And
Okay.
they're doing the same thing on their side. They're having a joint.
Yep.
Wait.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Upright. You saying something, Rob? You're on mute.
Sorry. I was just saying, I think their questions honestly should be limited during our part,
Yeah, I agree.
because they're going to have their part to ask the questions and make their changes.
Yeah.
I think maybe clarifying questions or even limiting the time, per section, we have to do that because.
Yeah. Well, it'll be our meeting, right? Am I right?
Yeah, the concept is that it's a joint meeting, but I think you would want them to comment at the very end as budget committee members so that they do have that chance, but not all throughout, because it's really the board's bite at the budget and to make the cuts that you want to see. Tina, if I just may, there's a couple of dates on this that if you can work with the budget committee to try to steer clear of.
I noticed the budget hearing right now on that is scheduled for either the 14th or the 16th of January. The 16th is the Saturday of Martin Luther King weekend. So in order to have our admin team there to answer questions or have any clarifications, I will propose at the next meeting to schedule that for January 14th, which is the Thursday night, which is typically how it's been in the past few years.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And it's not just our team. I think about parents. So, 3-day weekends with school-aged parents, that's prime time to get away. So I think if you can steer clear of it. The other concern, I thought we had talked about not meeting on election day. So November 10th is the general election, and people, people are going to be, the polls are going to be packed this November, that's for sure. And I just think steering clear of that makes sense. I will tell you as moderator, I'm going to be at the polls that day myself. So it's one of those.
It's possible too that was discussed at the budget committee meeting. I've been to so many meetings lately, I can't keep them all straight sometimes. So I'll mention that too, that November 10th is election day.
Perfect, because I know even our personnel who need to get home to vote. Now, of course, we have access to absentee balloting this year, but it's still
Yeah,
steering
No,
clear of that makes sense.
thank you for that. I'll bring those up at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So I have another question. I know I was on the call also, but the 2 meetings for capital improvement planning, December 10th and then Tuesday the 15th, what exactly, why are we presenting to the budget committee capital planning?
So the intent is to review the plan with both the town and the school. So I don't know. Yes, it is noted on this that we combine with the town, just to have the chairs of those committees or a representative of those committees talk about what is included in the capital plan and what would be expected to be on the warrant.
So again,
General overview.
right, but it's going to change. Every year it's going to be different warrants. I don't understand why we're presenting to the budget committee. There's a member of the budget committee, the chair, on the town planning committee. There is a budget committee member on the school planning committee,
Right.
who go back and report. So I don't know why we would be presenting.
I don't
We're
know.
not presenting to the selectmen.
You want me to ask that?
It seems a little redundant.
Yeah, I don't understand, and I don't think we should be having a meeting to present our capital improvement plan to the budget committee. I think
For that plan.
I
Okay.
think they'll be invited as the public if they'd like to come in and have a discussion, but they're not the ones who are formulating the capital plan.
But also, I mean, it's one thing to present Brian next month after they're both out, but why do it during budget season? It's going to be a multi-year plan where it's going to appear on the budget.
But
Their responsibility is the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, not our long-range plan.
correct.
It's a little redundant, and I don't think we need to present it to them
No.
directly.
Nor do I.
No, I don't think the town should either. So
Okay. I'll bring that up.
And if they didn't have a representative on the committees, then I would say, well, maybe they want to be informed, but it's not their responsibility.
Okay.
Anything else on the calendar?
Nope, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to capital plan.
So basically, just in a nutshell, I don't know if all the board were able to watch the other night, but we presented our capital plan. So this is the work that the capital planning committee has been engaged in for a year. Yeah. And so, just a couple of comments. The full board hasn't acted on it, but you have it now. You all have a copy of it. Michelle did tremendous amount of work pulling together all these conversations and the worksheets that the town wanted. And the district was complimented by the planning folks that, this is a pretty thorough capital plan. And so I would just encourage board members, if you want to watch that meeting from the other night, please feel free to do so. As we've talked about, we're putting all the eggs in the elementary school basket. The site and the building at Griffin are just in need of replacement. When you analyze it, that's what this comes down to. So, and then we're also prioritizing the air quality issues at the middle school and the high school, talking about opening and being flexible and nimble. If we are going to bring staff and students back into those buildings, we need to make sure that we've got good air quality and good air exchange taking place. And so we need to get the HVAC systems updated as soon as possible. So that's another piece that's in front of us all, trying to figure out how to get that done as soon as we can. So I don't know if the board had any questions for us on the capital plan and what's there or what was presented the other night. Happy to answer questions or field questions on it.
You're muted, Liz.
Who exactly is on the capital planning committee? Who are there principals? Like, who are the players?
So on our planning committee, So Tom had done this as a project for us. He got it kind of pulled together and started off, and then was the chair of our committee. The other two principals, Scott and Bill, were also on the committee. Tina and Brian were on the committee as the school board reps. And Corey and I were on the committee. Michelle was a member of the committee. And Dave Ross, who is our facilities director, was a key member of the committee. And then Nikki Forty joined us as a representative from the budget committee. And we had a selectman rep last year, Kurt Schaefer, and now Steve Weber has been appointed to be our rep. So that's who sort of met and put all this together. And I can just tell you, deep conversations, circular conversations that got us to where we landed with what went forward. And then in terms of the town capital planning, I'm going to turn that over to Brian, because Brian's the rep from the school district to that. And Brian, do you want to just comment who else is on it?
I don't know a couple of the individuals, unfortunately. Mike Crotto is the chair. Steve Weber is on. Myself, Troy. Corey attends also. Andrew Cutter is the rep from the budget committee. Then there's a Steve. And I'm sorry, one other gentleman. That, unfortunately, it's kind of difficult when you have.
There was a Pete Stone the other night.
That's it.
Sean Flynn.
Sean Flynn.
Sean Flynn. Sorry, not Steve, Sean.
And then there's a representative from the planning commission. What are they called? The Nashua Planning,
National Regional Planning Commission. So
That's Jay.
the rep from there.
I was just curious to see who was part of all this.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good mix, I think, on both committees, as far as pretty broad spectrum covering a lot of different areas.
and when you look at the best thing to do is to look at the planning matrix, because it's getting after the projects that we need to get after in the short term, and then putting the eggs in the basket of the new elementary school at the point in time that we're eligible for it, because we have to apply for it. So basically, you'll see there's planning money that we need to spend to be able to apply for state aid, state building aid. So our intent is to, and the voters so far, I mean, we were pretty clear that we were going to do a feasibility study, and they authorized us to spend $70,000 to do that. So the voters know that this is something that we have in mind. We're proposing to spend $125,000 in the next 2 years to get solid site plans, solid architectural plans, so we can then apply for the state aid as soon as we're able, and then put a warrant article in front of everybody. And frankly, if that fails, then there's a bunch of projects that need to be done. I guess if it fails, are we committed to staying at the GMS site? Which means we've got to spend a lot of money to get that building brought up to speed and to solve issues that are there. There are also issues at the middle school, because that means that we're committed to keeping 5th grade there, which means we have to do something to address the portables. Site work at both the GMS and LMS parking lots that needs to be done. So, it's like, spend the money to fix this, or we're going to have to spend the money to put the new school in, or we're going to have to spend the money to fix a bunch of other issues. So that's the way it's structured and tiered. So some of the stuff,
I saw the whole thing. Yeah.
If the new school is approved, some of the funds just drop off. They're not necessary. So it's really, but we can't ignore them and say, what if it fails, right? So it's tough.
Right. Interesting. Thank you for the insight.
That'll bring us to the reopening task force.
All right, so the reopening task force, we took the state's START task force and then modeled our local task force on that. And I tried to present it to you as a one-pager. We looked at what other districts are doing. Goffstown has a pretty solid plan, as does Bedford. And we sort of picked from those and structured this around the state plan. So the state is supposed to issue recommendations to local districts by the end of June. And our goal is to take those and start meeting in earnest the week of July 6th, and to then have a plan ready to go to the school board by the end of July. And so we don't have a July 29th meeting on our calendar. I'm proposing to the board that we have a special meeting for one agenda item. And that agenda item is the reopening task force. And remember, even if you're away that week, but you have the ability to participate in this forum, it's going to be probably a remote meeting. But, you know, we would want to get a plan approved by the board so that we can get it to our parents in early August, because they need to know what we're planning to do in order to make the best decision they can for their children. So that's, to me, that's the back planning, right? So if we're going to have a reasonable plan based on the most up-to-date information we can in August, we're going to have to spend July focused on getting that done. And that'll get us to that. So this is the structure to get that work done.
Okay. I made a comment earlier today. I think having teacher input in all 4 of those teams is important and critical. I think wellness, you had it included in instruction and technology, but not under wellness and operations. And I feel like the teachers and support staff members who work in those buildings or who are going, you know, planning to work remotely next year, it might be good to have kind of a remote in-person teacher or support person, just so we get input from both sides. I just think boots on the ground are going to be the best source of what will work, what won't work for kids.
We can easily add teachers onto those. So Mary and I had our last lunchtime all staff conversation today. I think we had 50 people that joined us, and I was a little nervous going in. It's like we're asking teachers in July to be available for this, but teachers want to do it. They want to have an opportunity. And so we actually talked about what's not represented in the plan is there's another tier of this, which is there'll be representatives helping to craft it, but then the draft report can go to pretty much anybody. We can make it available to staff for feedback. So I said to our paras and our teachers, monitor your email in July. Know that we're working hard in July, and opening critical information is going to come out in July. So, you know, it'll be there as a draft and people can make comments and provide feedback on it. So even if they can't serve on one of the task force, our intent is to get it to staff because there will be a variety of angles on it. I will tell you that we've already heard from our associations that they have the right to bargain over changes in working conditions, and they've made it clear that whatever comes out of this, that if it has an impact on their working conditions, they have the right to bargain. So I just want us to keep in mind there's one more dimension to figuring out what this all looks like. And so that's another piece of it.
We have to follow the legislation. Like, I'm not sure what it is. Like, if Tina doesn't want to go back to school, we can't make her go back to school to teach, can we? I mean, that's all these. I'm just asking, if your husband had asthma and you don't want to go back to school, do we still have to pay the teacher that doesn't want? I don't know. There are so many. I don't know. Do they use sick days? There are so many other dimensions beyond those dimensions.
Right.
And following the law and legislation, and it's crazy. We can't make it remote, can we?
Liz, that's why we're formulating a task force.
I know.
We're not trying to resolve it tonight.
The 90 questions I sent you?
Yeah, delete.
Task force will take care of all of those questions.
Okay.
We will, and we're going to have legal advice on all those things too, right? So, you
Is
know,
that operations or is that instruction? Or is that
so I added Holly from HR will be on the operations side because I think that's where the personnel pieces end up. So I really want the instruction people to focus on the delivery of instruction to students, right? And that's where they ought to be. who's going to do it and how it's going to occur. The operations folks will have to figure those pieces out. And so you take the CARES Act and all the other leaves that are available. We have to figure out how to mesh it all and make it work.
So that's under
I
operations.
had a question about the structure of the teams. I just want to make sure I'm unmuted.
You are.
You are.
Okay, it takes a second for it to pop up. The wellness committee, we had defined wellness as social, emotional, nutrition, and fitness. So I'm just wondering what the rationale is in having food services and the athletic director under operations versus wellness.
And Tara, you're referring to the district wellness committee, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So for me, as I thought about it and as our team wrestled with it, it was enacting that. So how do we serve people? That's the operational side of it. So, I feel pretty comfortable that our food service is paying attention to healthy meals, et cetera. But the actual, who's the staff, how will they do it? We've already got some of our staff questioning, do we have cards for kids, or how do they punch in? And some of that is even modeled around the idea that students are going to actually go up to a lunch line or I'm not sure that that's actually the model going forward. I'm not sure that students standing shoulder to shoulder going along with a tray is the way we're going to be feeding kids. So I'm confident that it's going to be a properly balanced meal that's well, but then the operations of how we get that in the hands of the student is really, to me, the challenge. But we can go either way. We can put it on the side of wellness, but I think it's really, to me, it's more of a personnel procedural piece that we need to figure out.
Yeah, I read it as kind of operations nuts and bolts. How are things going to be configured? How are students going to move throughout the building? That kind of stuff. And then wellness is more, I felt like it was resources for social, emotional, especially, increased anxiety and the health offices.
See, I thought the operations, like what Corey's on, was about like how we're keeping the buildings going, not how instruction is delivered, whether it's remote but if Holly's on that one with Corey, then that's part of it too, right? Is that what I understand?
I see operations as literally the nuts and bolts of it. So, if the decision is, our students going to eat in their classrooms and we're just going to shut cafeterias down. And then what that means is our food service people have to pack a bag lunch and handle, get it delivered to the classroom. Well, now automatically, Dave, how are we cleaning up a bunch of classrooms and all the foods? What's our plan to get that done, and to make sure that we are able to handle the fact that you're not eating in the cafeteria? It's one thing to wipe down tables. It's another thing to wipe down a bunch of desks scattered all throughout the building. So those are the nuts and bolts of it. But I'm confident Lauren's whatever goes in that bag is going to be the right meal. It's just, how do we get that served to the students?
So the state also has a couple cross-functional groups that I don't think we should add anymore. But I think what the reality of it is that these teams, there's going to be crossover between some of them. So, if exercise comes up in the wellness discussions, that group should really make a note of it and then bring it up to, the other team, I suppose. And maybe we can just work it that way.
Well, and we have the overarching task force.
Right.
You're going to have ideas that come from the subgroups that will come back in, and then you'll have more opportunity to brainstorm. And if anybody has any additional input on what those subgroups is doing, then you take that feedback and go back to the subcommittees. I mean, this is going to be a lot of work for sure.
Right.
Are you just going to point them, or are you going to ask?
Yeah, I just don't want the nutrition and athletic end of it to get lost, because I think a lot of kids, mine included, are struggling because they don't have sports. And I think we need to bring that back in some shape or form. And I just want to make sure that would be addressed in the wellness area as well.
Not even sports, Tara. It's the it's group, even theater.
Movement, activity, doing something, trying something new.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just getting out there, not being on the computer 100% of the day.
Yeah, I'm so done with that.
Like, it's great we're getting this going, but my one concern is, like with sports, no matter what we come up with, we can't do anything until the NHIA decides.
Right.
Same with people. I just had this discussion the other day with a friend that runs a construction company that there's no law right now if somebody's uncomfortable. So they take their sick time, they take their vacation time, then they have to go on unemployment, but their job's held. I got to think there's going to be legislation coming out left and right. Is the state giving us any idea what's going to happen before we plan this, or no?
No. So we haven't seen what that's going to look like. I will just say that, people, any societal thing, there's always somebody who takes advantage of the system. We haven't seen that. I mean, our employees have been coming to work. They've been participating in the remote learning. They want to work with the students. And so we haven't seen problems that have popped up with that. So we're just anticipating the same thing will occur next year. And if we provide options, I think people will see those as opportunities that they can, here's how I can best meet my own scenario, my own need, and at the same time still meet the needs of the students. So I feel pretty good about that.
Throw this out there. Parents want direct instruction next year. They want 8 to 3 or whatever the school hours are, direct instruction. I know that for a fact.
Some
Dairy field.
parents do that, but some parents don't. So I think that's where
We need to do it both.
tricky. Yeah, I mean, if we can do both, great.
And again, that's going to be all part of the conversation of it. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot that's going to be involved with this. So,
I think the important thing is to remember that even listening to the calls from the state, even the commissioner saying that, especially at the high school level, the need for flexibility with some of these kids, because some of them have turned out, they're working during the day. The kid goes and works during the day. They're not able to sit down 8 to 3. They're working at Market Basket stocking shelves. The structure of the 8 to 3 does not work for everybody.
They should record themselves teaching lectures and things. We need more instruction instead of do this, do that, do this, teach yourself that.
And feedback on assignments. I mean, that is one area that I really feel is lacking. They're grading the assignments, and, a lot of teachers have stepped up in terms of recording some assignments, but what I really feel is lacking is feedback, that direct feedback.
Just a couple of things so the board knows. That survey that was done for the state, they had 50,000 people respond to that survey. Over 50,000, right? So it's a huge data set. My understanding, Corey, I want to make sure I'm right, but we're going to get the Litchfield data back. So anybody who did the drop down and said they're in Litchfield, that's going to come back to us.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be feedback. And that survey was pretty comprehensive. If you went in and took it, it was not short. It took a full 20, right? The other piece is that what was missing in that was student voice. And so principals in South Central New Hampshire got together and they came up with a survey that was administered it was a high school student survey. I actually asked to have a copy of it, and I made a copy for Litchfield, and I pushed it out to our grade 5 through 12 students. And then for our administrative team meeting tomorrow, I've said, this is how 1,000 students in various schools in New Hampshire answered the question. Here's how Litchfield students answered the question. And in some cases, we are just parallel. Like it's, their curve is our curve, but there are a few questions where our curve is really not aligned with it. And I think it points out to some real growth opportunities that we have. And it's around what you're talking about, Liz. The students want more direct instruction. They want more connection with their faculty. They want more connection with their classmates. And this will be the work of the task force to figure out how to do all of that. So there's another piece of what we can offer to the committee to get the work done and done right.
I do have to say it's a little ironic that wherever you heard that they want flexibility so students can go out in the public and work, but they can't be in the classroom. that's a little discouraging to hear that came from the state.
It has been a talking point on the calls with the commissioner, that the need for flexibility in the remote environment.
I'm saying that it's encouraging, they're acknowledging it.
Yeah.
That our high school students are working at Walmart and Sam's and Market Basket, but they can't be in a classroom because it's too dangerous.
But some of them need to work because their mom's a waitress and hasn't been working, and not.
And I understand that, Liz, but it's discouraging that we're okay with them being
Out in the Walmart.
out wherever, but we're not okay with them being in a classroom.
Yeah, the pickle with it, Rob, is that some of the older workforce who are at Market Basket during the day when students are working are not able to work because they've got, health concerns about going in. So now they're relying on the younger. I mean, it's this whole domino that one thing feeds off the other.
But it's a complete circle, Mike, because if we don't get kids back into a classroom, who's going to be the caregivers? The same grandparents, once the parents are back to work, that are the highest risk. It's, no matter where you look, there's not a good decision. It just bothers me a little bit that if the state said that, the state's saying be flexible with hours so the kids can go out and work during the day.
It's not really that. It's also saying the understanding that teenagers have the tendency to sleep a little bit later if given that, need the chance to rest and all that kind of stuff. I do want to throw out a word in terms of, what our task force is going to get from the state. And all along the line, it's been, the state's going to provide guidance. We're not going to tell you what to do. We'll give you recommendations, but everything comes down to local control. So we can't expect that they're going to give us a list of directions. They're going to give us things to consider, and then it's going to be really, really important that this task force and the sub groups of it review it and come up with the best plan we possibly can for our students and families.
So one thing I'm very interested in ensuring transparency through the school reopening planning process. So can we make a commitment that the task force and team meetings will be public and recorded?
So recorded, where would we?
Like through cable, right? Will they be there?
So I think some of these will be taking place during the day. We would have the ability to record them through Google Meet, and then I guess we could provide the file to.
We'll link to it on the district website.
Actually, that's probably even better because I think if we just keep a folder on our website and we just put the meetings in there so that somebody who wants to go back and watch them can, that's easily done. Yep.
That would be great.
That's a good point, Tara. So are you looking for each of us board members to step up for a subcommittee?
Yeah.
It looks like Ryan is on the overarching task force.
Yeah, and I actually had a thought, so if I can just share it, and again, if it doesn't fit for whomever, because I gave it some thought. I talked to Mike, and what I thought of is Tina, you for wellness.
You want me to do wellness?
What's that?
Me for wellness?
Tina, yes.
Oh.
Well, I just let me throw out there, and then we can discuss.
Yeah, explain.
For instruction, I picked Rob, where he's involved right now with the remote learning through Google Classrooms. Operation was Tara, and technology, I had Liz.
Okay.
Sure.
Rob.
I'm okay, whatever.
That works.
Tina,
Yeah, that's fine.
excellent.
You
Thank
know me, I want to do them all.
And I think Tyra's, I don't know, was it Tyra who said it, that these are just, they're going to cross connect in different areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think just trying to like place everyone's strengths into those categories, I think is very helpful.
Yeah. So I'm wellness? Is that what we decided?
Yes.
Yes. So I'll add that to the spreadsheet, and we'll keep updating that spreadsheet. So the only other thing is be on the lookout for a meeting for June 15th from 3 to 4:30. That'll be the kickoff to this. And the way I envision it is, again, you have that overarching task force. The directors, principals are then doing the work. bringing that back to the task force. We're looking for cross references like, hey, we're not sure how to handle this, et cetera. We'll get after all those pieces, and then we can get feedback back. We'll be recording those meetings. They're public. I'm going to be popping in and out of meetings. I don't know that I can commit to attending every single one of the work groups, but I'll be popping in and out and facilitating as I can. And we have a short timeline, folks. I don't know how to say it. You know, I've said to the admin team, some people have vacation plans, and I'm like, if you can join us from the Cape, join us from the Cape. You're not going to be able to go to the beach, so you may as well join us from the cabin or the house.
Yeah, but the
So
plan is that they're short meetings.
they're short meetings, but they're work meetings. So,
Yeah.
you know, there'll be questions and stuff that needs to be done.
And I'm
How are
certain.
you going to decide what parents and what staff are going to be on the,
So now that the board is comfortable with this plan, we'll make some tweaks and adjustments, and then I'll get word out. I have a list of people who have been go-getters. Like, they know we're talking about this, and they've said, I would like to be on it. And so we may just start with that list, but I want to make sure that anybody else who wants to participate can. And here's the worst case is we say, you know, we don't have space on the committee, but when we need parent input, you'll be on the group that we go to so that we can, you know, get other fresh eyes on the work that we're doing. So
oh, that's a great idea.
everybody will get an opportunity to weigh in.
All right. That brings us to food services.
Yep, food service. So you can see the report from Lauren. May was busy. 2,828 meals were served. Lauren continues to have fun with it. Today she was dressed up as a mermaid. She's at the point that now she has families are dressing up to come and get the meals. So she's really made it into a fun event. I believe next Monday the last meal? Yes, it would be June 8th would be the last meal. So I would invite Litchfield families to join the dress up parade, because they will be, I'm sure, all decked out for the last lunch that's being served.
They normally do a bag lunch on the last day of school, but it's because they do it Tuesday, Thursday, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they're all bag lunches at this
Yeah.
point. So yes. All right. So that's the meal service.
That'll bring us to policy second reading of the dress code.
Yep.
GICA.
I make a motion to approve the second reading of policy GICA dress code.
Tina made a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Liz? Liz made a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Tina?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And Brian's an aye. Thank you.
It makes me laugh when you talk in third person.
And
Right? Thank you.
yeah, thank you. That brings us to the manifest. Again, I think we've already discussed it, that manifests are at the high school. When you do go in, you'll be asked several questions. Your temperature will be checked, and then you can go through the manifest. So,
I'll go. Is it there now, Corey?
Yes.
I'll go tomorrow.
staying here. All right, that brings us back to public input.
All right, hold on, let me check.
All right.
We're adjourning early.
What?
I know, it's not even set yet. I have received no further emails.
All right. And with that, I'll ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
So me. Yes.
Liz-
Aye.
Wow.
Liz made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tina?
Aye.
No, I'm sorry. Who's second?
Tina.
Oh, yeah, it was me. Aye. It was aye.
Then Tina's and I. Liz?
Aye.
Tara?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And Brian's and I. 5-0-0. Excellent. Thank you very much. And good night, everyone. Good night, Litchfield.
Night.
It was a one battery meeting.
One what?
One back.